Good morning, friends. Happy Thursday and welcome to Medwell Unscripted Live in partnership with DocMJ.com. We're so excited. We have a wonderful guest here today. Rachelle Gordon is joining us from GreenState. And we're really excited because I think one of the biggest things, as we go through our Medwell Unscripted series, friends, we talk a lot about education. And Rachelle has it dialed in as a writer. So we're really excited to get talking with her here in a moment. So if you are here and watching us live, please feel free to drop a hello and where you are coming from this morning. And if you are catching the replay, feel free to drop a comment afterwards. We will absolutely get back to you. So, and also just kind of on a side note, my friends, so as you know that we are at Medwell and at DocMJ, we help patients get certified for the medical cannabis certification. And I'm really excited to announce that we are now in West Virginia. So we've expanded our landscape and we continue to grow to better serve you patients and helping with your wellness and care. So very excited for that. All right. So as you know, my partner in crime, Emily Waxman, our Director of Community Outreach, is here today with me. And, as we get closer to, so first of all, ladies, I can't believe summer is almost upon us. Like, I feel like we went fast forward from I don't know, the holidays we're almost to the end of May here. So Emily, what are you up to in the community? Share with us.
Oh, well, it's all about education, right? I mean, it's the utmost importance over here at DocMJ and Medwell. So I am always out and about in the community, being able to talk to folks, talk about why someone would want to receive their medical cannabis certification. We've got folks that live in adult use communities. We've got folks that live in just medical. So a lot of times just explaining the difference and, why they would be able to, get products that maybe might be, at higher dosing because they're in a lot of pain, not paying that tax any longer, all the good stuff that comes along with having a cannabis certification. So it's always just an absolute pleasure to be able to see folks out in the community. If you see me at a table event, please make sure you come up and say hello. I'd love to be able to talk. And I'm just doing my thing, April,
Awesome. Thank you. So friends, when we were in the green room, I just want Emily to share just a little bit. You had the opportunity to meet a group of seniors yesterday, which was awesome, and share with them about medical cannabis. So do you want to just talk about a little bit about that? Because I love that story.
Yes, it was phenomenal. It was with our wonderful partners at NETA. A couple of representatives from there were able to join me, and we were able to go to someone's home who had requested some education and information, and she had about 20 of her friends. They were
20.
all, I'd say, it was phenomenal. I'd say they were all between 60s, 70s, maybe even a little older, but all very excited to be able to talk about cannabis and do it in a way where there was no anxiety. Everyone could feel comfortable. They all, were able to just, let their guard down and ask away. So by the end of the night, they all felt like they had walked away with some really good education about, how these products can help them and how they can just live some better lives and not be stuck at home with their medication that's just bringing them down. They can have something that's going to make them feel good and alive, and they can go about their day and get a good night's sleep. So it was a very fun night. And, thank you again, Judy.
It was great. Awesome. All right, my friends. So I'm really excited to get this party started, as we say. Today, we're going to be talking about connecting the dots with words and advocating for medicinal cannabis. Our guest is Rachelle Gordon. She's a journalist and editor of GreenState.com. And she's really raising the bar in the community, talking about the consumer use of medicinal cannabis, technology, and various cannabis topics, especially as things change. It's an ever-changing, fluid landscape. So welcome, Rachelle. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you so much, April and Emily, both of you, for having me. It's truly an honor.
Oh, thank you, Rachelle.
Yeah, we're really excited. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a cannabis journalist for the last 7 years. I'm originally from a small town in Wisconsin, but I've been going back and forth from Minneapolis to Oakland in California for the last few years and traveling all over the world covering cannabis and now psychedelics as the industries emerge. So I've been to plenty of different markets throughout North America. I was just in Spain for Spanibus in March.
Wow.
And it's been really exciting to see this movement take hold and to see it really go into hyperdrive as more and more communities come online. It's been really neat.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
love
So
that.
how did you get in? I'm just curious how you got into kind of the cannabis topic. So 7 years, but like what made you get interested in it? Talking about it was something that in a personal experience maybe, or just something that was just interesting?
Yeah, sure. So, I had always had a fondness for cannabis ever since I was a teenager. I was an au pair in Amsterdam, actually, when I was 20. So I lived over there for 8 months and got to see the
Very
culture
cool.
back in 2007. So that was really interesting. That was way before, there was any talk of legal cannabis, at least,
Yeah.
adult use anyways in the
Right.
States. So that was really fantastic. And I was actually working in education for a long time and transitioned out of that. Found that I had a knack for writing. I always excelled at it in school, but never really thought of it as a career. And started writing as kind of a side hustle, made it my full-time career. Initially writing about sustainability, education, things of that nature. And then as the legal industry started happening, I started finding jobs within that space. And, fast forward, I was in the right place at the right time a number of times, luckily, and was able to transition to having cannabis be my full-time beat and had the pleasure to travel all over building networks in different communities as they came online. And yeah, it's just it's been a real blessing. My father struggled with epilepsy really seriously when I was a little girl, and he couldn't have a driver's license. His epilepsy was so bad, he would have multiple seizures a day. And he was on a lot of medications, nothing was helping. My parents were divorced. He really wanted to be more independent and have a license. And so he went in to have a surgery, a very risky surgery where they can essentially correct the part of the brain that's epileptic. And
Wow.
unfortunately, he had a massive stroke. He was paralyzed when I was 9 years old and spent, the rest of his life in assisted living group homes. And he passed away in 2020 from long-term complications from this stroke. And, knowing what we know now about cannabis with
Yeah.
seizures and epilepsy, I can't help but wonder if maybe it could have helped him. But he never
Sure.
had the chance to try. And so that's why it's really important for me to do what I do, because there are so many people who could benefit from this plant medicine who may not even know it. And so that's why
Right.
I do what I do, truly, to get the education to the people.
Love
Uh,
that. Love that.
I,
Well, I'm
it's
sorry.
amazing
I'm
how in
sorry for
Canada,
your dad. Yeah.
I am too. And it's amazing how when you talk to folks in this industry, no matter what piece of the industry, they all have a very personal story, such as yourself, that really drives them to continue on. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Of
thank
course.
you. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about greenstate.com and kind of, I'm going to drop it here in the chat here for people to take a look at. But how did greenstate.com come to be, and kind of what is your involvement with it?
Sure. So GreenState.com is a cannabis lifestyle digital and quarterly print publication. It was initially started in 2017 with the San Francisco Chronicle with David Downs, a very well-known cannabis journalist, and really covering the wide range of topics surrounding cannabis and really trying to educate both the consumer and the canna curious and the canna curious adjacent. So maybe people who aren't even interested in trying cannabis, but could certainly benefit from some education
Yeah.
around it that's both accessible and accurate. We cover literally everything about the plant, whether it's growing the plant, whether it's consuming the plant, whether it's topics that could be people could be interested in, that they consume the plant or not. We just really want to make sure that we're offering accessible information for anybody who wants it, and making sure that we're tailoring it to everyone's interests. We don't really focus on the heads or the people who are really in the culture. We make space for them too, but we want to make sure that there are people, especially in new markets, who have a place where they can feel safe and comfortable to be empowered to either make a purchasing decision or just a decision about the plant itself.
I love that term, canna curious. I love that. Is that like trademarked? Because I want to use that. That's a great term. Like that's totally because that's totally, it really does define a lot of people. They're curious enough, but not sure and like tipping their toes on the edge. And I love that. So when you're um, bear with me. I lost my train of thought here. I was like stuck in Canna Curious. I was very excited. So I noticed that, so you guys do a variety of topics, right? So you have a section called Explained, then you have a section called News. Talk a little bit about kind of the difference in what those are.
Yeah, for sure. So news is going to be more kind of like trending topics, like, for when a state comes online, when they legalize, or when something happens within the industry itself, that's what we would consider news. Whereas Explained is a little broader evergreen topics. How does CBD make you feel? What is THCV? Things of that nature. So people can really feel, because this cannabis world is very vast and it can be very overwhelming, especially nowadays with so many new devices and consumption methods, modalities, and products. It can be like, it's a lot, right? And so the Explain section is really to help people understand more about the plant and the community itself.
And I think that was the article that I had read that you had wrote, Rachelle. That was the Reaching Medical Cannabis Consumers, Helping Patients Thrive. That was a phenomenal article. And I believe must have interviewed a fan favorite of ours, Nikki Lawley. She put in some quotes there. And if Nikki is watching this, very happy birthday to her. I saw it's her birthday today.
Happy birthday, Nikki.
She was a lot of fun.
She's phenomenal. And, I have to tell our audience that, you quote, also some really important data in your articles, which I think is extremely helpful. So there's, it's when you're reading things about cannabis, it's very difficult because, it's not like we have this really hard research on, specific things that it's, we can put out there. So, you're taking New Frontier data that, put out what they published. And, I think that's really helpful when you're reading that, so that, you had quoted like 93% of medical consumers felt cannabis helped their medical condition. So, I mean, that's an astounding fact when you read that. So that's very powerful. And I think that's really helpful when you're reading, so that you can say, wow, that's, really fantastic to read. And, hearing someone like Nikki be able to give her quotes in there, it's very helpful. So I just wanted to applaud you on the articles that I've read that you've written. They're really phenomenal, and certainly we'll continue to share them with all of our patients.
Thank you. That's really, really kind of you. I so appreciate the support. And yeah, happy birthday to Nikki. I've known Nikki for a long time, and she's such an inspiration. I have a really special place in my heart for her, and what she's doing to share her story of healing is just fantastic. And so we love that. And yeah, you're right. Like, pointing to the data is really crucial, because there's not a lot of it. And I think for folks to really understand this plant and to see that it's not just folks talking, right, is really, really important, because it legitimizes what we're doing and it validates what we're doing. And it helps people understand the culture and the community itself. Because I think for a lot of people, it takes kind of that personal connection to really, truly activate to the plant. I had an aunt who, when I got into the industry, was not so supportive. There was still so much stigma around it. And then a number of years later, she called me and said, hey, what do you know about this CBD stuff? I have a friend who says that she feels 20 years younger after taking the oil, and you're involved more. That connection, right? To really kind of snap. And so I think that, having the data and having people like Nikki share their stories is a really powerful testimony for our plant medicine.
100%. So true.
So how do you find your topics? So, like we, at Medwell and Doc MJ, we blog ourselves about various topics, but I'm just curious, because you guys are really, your whole premise of your site is just pushing out news and information. So how do you kind of stay up on topics and choose the topics that you're going to share?
That's a super great question. So, we kind of do a range of things. So we take a look at obviously like what's breaking news. If something really big is happening, we're following that. As Minnesota, the Senate was debating the legalization bill, I was literally in an Uber on the way to the airport, like watching the debate and typing the article, like it's gotta happen just in case. Other times, we really like to crowdsource.
Sure.
I want to know what people are curious about, what they're interested in, because I've been in this space for a long time. But for the folks who are on the outside, I know that they may have a lot of different questions that I might not even think about. So I really love getting inspiration from people. On 420, actually, I was in a pizza place and somehow I struck up a conversation with the guy next to me, and he started asking me about, well, can weed give you a hangover? I noticed that when I, have an edible or a beverage in the evening, I still feel kind of funny in the morning. And I was like, that would be a very good topic for us to explore. So that's
Right.
about that, because people need to know, right? That if they eat a gummy at night, like they could potentially still feel it in the morning. And if they have to go to work and it's not acceptable, like for them to feel that way when they're trying to start the day like that could be a problem, right? So really like to have those, in the moment situations happen, and also just looking at just the community in general and where we think there's a lack of knowledge. I was in New York recently, and there are a lot of illegal, illicit, unregulated dispensaries, and nothing against the illicit market or the traditional market, but I do think that people need to have an informed decision about what they're getting themselves into when they do go into an unregulated dispensary versus a regulated one. And so that's something I'm working on too, is how to just educate yourself so that you can make an informed decision about which space you want to go into.
That's so important. That's great. That's good information to put out there.
This is a little off topic, but I'm just curious because like I said, we do write blogs, and obviously we do a lot with social. So we have this whole AI technology that's come to play, right? And I think that I would love to hear your opinion on, so if I go to ChatGPT, just using that because that's the most talked about right now, I can go, okay, let's write a topic on, does weed make you hungover in the morning, right? So we'll use that as the example, and it's going to come up with all this stuff. So what are your thoughts on being able to disseminate true from human, right? Human writing as opposed to AI writing. What are your thoughts on that?
So ChatGPT is really useful for research, but there's no nuance or voice there. And so, I sometimes will use it just if there's something that I don't really know much about, and it will give me some good baseline information. The problem with cannabis, though, is that it can be very subjective, and there's a lot of differing information on different websites, right? So you look at the top 10 results on Google, one might say one thing and one might say another. So the problem with ChatGPT is, well, where are they pulling that information from? Is it aggregated and they're trying to find, the most common denominator for an answer? Or are they just pulling from the top ranking SEO articles? Those are the questions that I have about it. And so with cannabis, we have to be really, really careful because, there's not as many standards as there are with other industries, and there's not as many facts, right? There's a lot of theories and hypotheses, but, we don't really know for sure in a lot of ways. So I think it can be really great for baseline research, but we have to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
I totally agree. And, I just, it's curious because obviously, as you talk to more and more people, the other thing too, like, I think that voice is, for me, I feel like the voice is super important, and you can't get that from bots. And I think that, I've seen a lot, of course, in spam too, like, oh, this AI technology, use this. I see you're blogging, but it really does come down to, and I myself also look at it as research. Sometimes I'll type in, if I'm struggling with a call to action, just to see what they say. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Actually, I'm on a training tomorrow that's talking about kind of the transcription of AI technology. So very interesting topic.
Definitely.
But it will never replace humans, friends. So always remember that. That's a big thing.
That is true.
People ask me if I'm worried about it taking my job, but I'm not. I know I have a voice, and that's what's different. So
totally.
So So you talked a little bit about kind of you've traveled a lot, you have a lot of worldly experience, which I'm sure, which I know has obviously influenced some of your writing and kind of where you travel to. But tell us a little bit about you. You contribute to other blogs too. So what other kind of blogging sites do you contribute to and guest post on or are involved in?
So MG Magazine is a big one. That's actually where the medical consumers piece came out. That was a really great story. And they're more for the cannabis retail, retail entrepreneur, buyer, more for the industry itself, whereas GreenState is a lot more consumer facing. But MG is a lot more B2B. Also, a lot of work with Beard Bros. They're legacy cultivators who turned into a media company, and they've been extremely supportive of what I've been doing. They actually encouraged me to do an article at MJ BizCon a couple of years ago about how it feels to be a woman at a conference like that. And the story really blew up and got me a lot of attention. And I really credit them for helping to elevate my voice and my career and that in really important conversation. People I don't think don't realize that it was actually their idea for me to do that. And just, we really appreciate Beard Bros for giving everybody a voice. And that's just amazing. They're great. In the past, I've also done a lot of work with Cannabis Now magazine, High Times, Cannabis and Tech Today. Also love Cannabis and Tech Today. They're a quarterly and they do a lot of really great work online. They've broken some great stories. And stay tuned for their next issue. I have a few articles in their print, so that should be really
fun. Good. Oh, good. Awesome. I'll be on the lookout for that. That's great.
Definitely.
And I do love to hear that print is still available, right? So, especially for our senior market, they love print.
Yes. In fact, I think I have a new story in the latest issue of Skunk magazine, and this issue is just breathtakingly gorgeous. Lindsay McGowan did the cover art, and it is just phenomenal. So if you're at the local Barnes and Noble or anywhere where you get books and magazines, definitely look for the latest Skunk. It looks great.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what tips would you give our audience about medicinal cannabis and kind of what they should know? You have a lot of experience. You follow kind of the legalization. So on the adult use side and the medicinal side, what tips would you give the audience about medicinal?
Oh, wow. There are so many ways that I could go with that. But I'll offer a few to start. First of all, do not be afraid to ask questions. Stay curious. There's no such thing as a dumb question in this space. There's a massive learning curve, and you don't have to be shy, although you might not really know where to start. My friend's mother one time said to me, she was interested in getting some medical cannabis. And she said, Rachelle, I don't even know what questions to ask you. Right. And so I think, trying to brainstorm and, understand where you're coming from and what you are trying to gain is a really good starting point. How are you trying to feel? Do you have an ailment or an illness that you're trying to relieve symptoms from? What are you looking to get out of your medical cannabis experience? And start there. That's a really good starting point, especially if you're going to be talking to retail staff or doctors. Starting from the ground up and moving up, I think is really, really important. And answering every single question that you may have. Don't be shy, I think is number one, and look for really, accessible, accurate information. Do your due diligence and get a second opinion. Unfortunately, in the cannabis space, again, there's such a wide range of information. And when you go, I think, into a retail scenario too, you're not always sure what you're going to get yourself into. Some places are doing really, really great with patient awareness and education, and some places, less so. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're asking maybe not one person, but two, and that there's going to be some trial and error too. That's the second thing. Everybody is so different. We all have an endocannabinoid system that's processing these compounds in cannabis, and every person is different. So while one thing might make me energized, it might make you sleepy. And so understand that there could be some, trial and error there. And that can feel frustrating, especially because some of these products can be kind of expensive, right? And so if you buy something and it makes you, and you assume it's going to make you feel one way and it makes you feel another, that can feel really frustrating. So I think, getting the smallest amount of products that you can and just trying to be consistent, and also start low and go slow, right? Like we say that all the time, especially when it comes to edibles, but anything. If you're going to take a hit from a joint or a vape pen, take one, breathe in, count to 2, exhale, and then wait 10 minutes, see how you feel.
Right.
With an edible, take the smallest dose possible. I usually say 2.5 milligrams to start.
Yeah.
Take that, wait 2 hours, wait the entire 2 hours.
That's a big one, friends. You need to wait with an edible because people think that it's not working, and then all of a sudden they take more and then it hits them, and it can be not good. It could be really good. It just means that you're just like, you might be like,
exactly. No, you really have to be careful. That happens all too often, unfortunately. And the sad part is that, sometimes when we overdo it, it can be uncomfortable, and that might make you feel a little bit weary, and a little leery of cannabis. Like, oh gosh, that's how it makes me feel. I don't like it. But maybe, you just had too much, and the thing with edibles too, is there are a lot of variables at play. What did you eat that day? What's your metabolism like? Right. And so, when I'm trying a new product, I like to have a very controlled environment, right? Like I don't have anything important to do that day. I don't have any work to do, right? Like I can, make myself come down, which if you are too high, there are ways to do that. You can take some CBD, you can sniff some black peppercorns, eat, take a walk. There are things to do if you're a little bit uncomfortable. So I think
I've never heard that about peppercorns. So if you sniff black peppercorns, it's supposed to like take down your high. Is that what it does?
Yeah. So, and I don't know how much science there is to that. But yeah, it's a thing. Like, I think it's like an aromatherapy, right? Like,
got it.
Break you out of it.
Love that.
So, funny.
I think one of the biggest things, and because every state is very different, right? So when you talk about medicinal cannabis and qualifications, and every state is different, but every dispensary experience is different, my friends. So I recently was in California and walked into a dispensary, and even the setup and the layout is very different than it is here in Connecticut. And asking questions, even if you feel like it's not, how do I say this? So in Connecticut, I don't feel like sometimes I go in, it's like, it's a transaction, right? I feel like sometimes it's more of a transaction in the dispensary, where when I walked into California, I felt like they were like, how can I help you? What would you like to, what are you looking for to help? Like, do you have anxiety? What is your ailment? What do you need to make you feel better? So just keep that in mind. As coming outside of your comfort zone, sometimes you do need to go outside, because every experience is very different. And we are kind of in every state, every place. It could be one place to another is very different, but definitely ask questions and don't be afraid to write them down ahead of time. If you're nervous, right? Write them down and say, okay, I need my trusty note, because sometimes, I don't know about you all, but I go in and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even ask the question that I wanted to ask.
Right.
So,
and one other point I'll bring up too for all of our new friends that are going to be thinking about trying is journaling is also another great way to keep track of how certain items feel for you. So just a way to be able to keep track of it, put the item down, how much you took and when it kicked in and how it made you feel. And, that's always a great way, how long it lasted. That way, you'll know if that particular item worked for you or not, and whether or not you would go back and want to purchase that again. So definitely journaling is a big thing. And if you don't have one pen and paper, we have our friend Otha, who has Tetragram, which is a app that you can journal with, so that might make things a little bit easier, because we always seem to have our phone right next to us. So just something else to consider.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And I know that's something that Nikki talks a lot about too.
She sure does.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so important, because, a lot of times it's not necessarily about the strain of cannabis, but the terpenes, right? Those compounds that are
Yes.
responsible for the aroma, flavor, and effects. That's really driving your experience. So, if you're able to get a certificate of analysis, if you're able to find out what compounds, what terpenes and cannabinoids are in the product, you can make a better informed decision the next time, and you can understand what's working for you and what's not working for you, right?
Definitely.
So definitely good advice.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Rachelle, tell us where people can find you. I have your website. I'm dropping your LinkedIn profile here, but where's the best way for people to learn and follow from you?
Definitely LinkedIn is really great. Reach out at Rachelle Gordon. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is Rachelle the Writer. And on greenstate.com, read what we're doing. Follow us on socials. We're Your Green State on Instagram. And check us out on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. We're going to be doing as much as we can to inform people, and we want to hear from folks. We want to know what you're curious about, what you're interested in, what you want to know about cannabis, about plant medicine, about psychedelics, right? About this culture, about the science, anything, right? So please, our DMs are open. My DMs are open. You can always get in touch. Don't be shy. We want to know what people are interested in, and we want to help inform the next generation of cannabis consumers and cannabis curious. So, please don't be afraid to reach out.
You know what,
Awesome.
Rachelle, we're going to have you come back because we didn't even get a chance to touch upon all your knowledge about psychedelics. And there's so much wonderful information about psychedelics now, and how much it's truly helping folks in so many different capacities. So I would love to be able to touch upon that again, on another time when we can have you back, because I don't think it's the same psychedelics that folks, are thinking about from the 60s. It's really come very far, and it's incredible to read what people are finding that it's helping with now. So
absolutely,
we'll touch on that another time.
I would love that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of people are activating to this medicine, and it's really amazing to see what's been going on. And so, yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you so much for your time today, your insight and your knowledge. We're so happy to connect with you. And thank you, Nikki, for helping make the connection, because that's awesome. And for getting up early, because I know that you are on the West Coast.
Yes.
So we appreciate
Thank you,
being
Rachelle.
early.
It was an early morning.
Looking gorgeous, camera ready too, because that is definitely sometimes hard when you're like. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are catching the replay, drop a hello, leave a comment, leave a question. We're happy to get back to you. Next week, we are same time, same place, and our friends from Netta and Parallel will be talking with us about the senior experience, patient experience. So be sure to join us and tune in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Again, thank you so much, ladies. Have a fabulous day and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon, friends. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for having me.